Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Today we're going to be going over the side-by-side comparison of the Galaxy Player 3.6 versus the iPod. Alright, so first right down to it, the iPod has more of a metallic backing and case, whereas the Samsung's is more of a plastic construction. Not necessarily definite winner. A lot of people like the metallic feel of the iPod, although that one really does get scratched up fairly easily. Whereas the Samsung won't get scratched up at all because of its plastic and then metallic coating on the back. And as well as in terms of add-ons, you do have a micro SD card slot with the Samsung, which means you can actually add on up to 32 gigs of storage onto the MP3 player. So very nice to have. In terms of cameras, both have VGA on the front. However, the Samsung does have a 2 megapixel versus the VGA on the back on the iPod. So let's go over some of the basics. So let's go over into the music player, which is over just right down here. And then where did the music player hide to? There we are. And so in terms of interface, both have some pretty nice effects, whereas Apple has the carousel effect when on landscape. Samsung will have the disc view. So both pretty unique to their own. Overall, they both produce pretty decent sound. Was built in. Yeah, put louder song on the Samsung. Obviously the stock ones aren't going to be that loud, but pretty decent. Both do a pretty good sound output without getting any kind of scratchy feel. On the Apple one, of course, you just have this player, whereas on Android you can always have Google Music, which is just, I prefer a lot more, especially just for the viewing even sideways, just because of the nice carousel effect, which is just the most preferred right now. Even most people that have Apple just like Google Music's interface better. And more so just because it's newer, it's fresher, as where Apple hasn't changed their interface for a long time on their music side. So, a couple of the basics right there. Now, both have folders, you can see, although unlike, Android 4.0, the folders aren't as fluid, so folders would just do a bit better on iOS. If this is upgradable to 4.0, then the Android would be better, but for right now, folder's definitely a preference on the Apple. In terms of videos, both are pretty good, but definitely winner would go to the iPod on this one, simply for the fact that you really don't have a real good experience with the Android, simply for the fact that when playing it back, you see that it really is more of a squished up version, whereas Apple, you have the black bars on the top, the Android, you have the black bars on the side. In terms of actual visual, the Samsung does have a much brighter screen and I would say more clarity, even though this Apple has the better resolution. I think it's just simply because Samsung uses better screen technology. Well, they make both screens, but they made this one a better screen quality. So because of that, this one looks a bit better, but just because it's so squished in, definitely Apple's would be better in terms of watching movies. So, important thing to note, if you're watching movies a lot, probably would recommend the iPod over for that reason. In terms of camera, it's a 2 megapixel versus a VGA, so you can already guess who the winner might be. In terms of when we went over it, it definitely just turned out to be the Samsung, just because iPod is just not as sharp. You can definitely see it in the clarity of the Samsung itself, as well as just the color reproduction. Apple's is really washed out, whereas the Samsung will look a lot better. So if you need to take a quick snapshot, the Samsung would definitely be the better one for a little bit camera for you. Now, right down to price, you have pretty comparative models here, but huge difference in price. You have a $199 for the iPod, whereas the Samsung 3.6 is going to be $149. So for $50 less, you get some things that Apple just can't give you in terms of FM radio, expandable memory, and in terms of apps, of course, you have over 400,000 on both. So it's pretty comparable overall, but for the price point difference, I mean, it's just really a lot better off to go for the Samsung 3.6 if you're just listening to music and want to be on the go. As well as you just have things, of course, like widgets, which just are really hard to compare, and just like in this video, Google stock is beating Apple's right now. Similar thing here, it's just really when you compare them two side by side, you have a lot more with the Google interface. So for $149, unless you do want to watch a lot of movies on a 3.5 and 3-inch screen, then I would suggest going with the Galaxy Player overall. As well as the iPod's still really good. It hasn't stood the test of time comparing to a newer, more up-to-date Android model. Alright, if you guys have any other questions about either of the two models, feel free to ask. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.